Good morning. Welcome to our Optimize virtual. I'm not Brian, and I know you all know that. So today, our Optimize is taking things for granted versus as granted. And most of you know, taking things for granted means we just assume it's always going to be there. We're not really thankful for it. So today, what I want you to think about is really putting your gratitude for work. So think about things you take for granted and let's start to take them as granted. In this time right now, I'm thinking of obviously my warm house that I take for granted, the internet that's working right now, I take for granted my smartphone. I did take for granted that I would be able to go to work every day and see my students, see you. So those are all things we take for granted. So the thing we should try to start to do is not take it for granted, but think of it as granted, as a gift. So be grateful for these gifts. Nothing is guaranteed. We know that. School is not guaranteed. I think most of you thought that would be forever. And so if we start to look at life with gratitude and not taking anything for granted and as granted, you'll just be a happier person and you can share that with others. So I want you to think of 3 things that you normally take for granted and write them down, and today take them as granted. So for one thing, right now, this computer working that I can talk to you over the internet, I take that for granted. If for some reason I couldn't send you guys assignments or communicate with you, it would be horrible. So I'm taking that as granted, and I'm grateful for that I can still contact you. Another thing I take for granted is usually my warm house. Well, it's not really warm because I keep it kind of cold, but that I have the choice to keep it whatever temperature I want, and I'm happy when I wake up. And so I'm thankful for that, and I'm going to take that as granted, not for granted. And another thing I take for granted is my morning cup of coffee. I like my organic, really healthy coffee. And I just assume I'll always get to have that. And so instead of taking my organic, healthy coffee for granted, I'm taking it as granted today. So today, in all your work that we're all struggling with right now, it would be wise to stop, write down 3 things that you usually take for granted, and today take them as granted. And the minute you do that, you're just going to feel so much better. I couldn't believe I was in a rush this morning getting all the work done to send to you all. And as soon as I wrote down 3 things that I'm taking as granted, just this like calm came over me. So today, you should think of what you take for granted versus as granted and write them down and be grateful today. +1, +1, +1.